and welcome to this week's episode of The Hash. We are starting the week on a Tuesday this week. I hope everyone enjoyed the wonderful long weekend, the holiday. But on the show today, we have the usual team back together, which is very exciting. Zack, Seward, Will Foxley, Ben Powers, and Jen Sanasie. Welcome to the show, guys. And to start off, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin carnage that has been happening over the last week, over the last couple of days. Zack, what's going on there?
Down only is what's going on right now. Bitcoin dipped below 30,000, a key psychological threshold this morning, dipping into the 29s. Man, that hurts a bit. We've bumped back up to the 31 range, but still, price go down. Let's talk. This is mainly driven by concerns around China's crypto mining crackdown, among other things. I'm going to toss this to Will. What's going on? Tell me why this is happening.
That's such a big ask. These price questions are never fair.
I think what's happening
since April, it's been like kind of down only. There was like that first week in May where it was just so bloody. I think it was like the most liquidations in Bitcoin's history ever, and that kind of sparked once Coinbase listing didn't really pump the coin much at all. Like I think a lot of people were expecting Coinbase going public to kind of boost Bitcoin's price. And then of course the next week it hit a new all-time high, like 64, but then it retraced. And since then it's just been like dropping pretty steadily. And then we got some Elon Musk FUD in there as well. And that dropped us some more. And then now it's just like total sadness and capitulation, looks like. So yeah, below 30 this morning. Very sad to see. Crazy to think though that 6 months ago or so, we were watching the price go up the other way and it was pretty exciting. So
yeah, so three. I think it was some. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. Up about 3%. So basically, on the year, kind of erasing those gains in the first quarter that we saw. That really climaxed with the Coinbase listing. If you look at it, that was actually at the all-time high, and then since sort of sagged in price. Some puppos are trying to talk about this, and we'll get them on the show in a bit.
They're feeling the free fall.
I'm gonna throw this to you, Ben. I'm gonna throw this to you for the China angle. I would like to unpack that a bit more. I think we've seen a lot of attention around sort of different provinces in China cracking down on Bitcoin mining. A lot of interesting sort of follow-on activity from that in terms of the Bitcoin hash rate sinking quite noticeably. Talk to me about the China angle and what we can expect to see there in the coming days.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. There's going to be kind of long tail effects, I think, from this, because not only, we saw China start to crack down in a really hard way, not just streamers actually saying, you need to shut down by this time. We started to see, Chinese miners sort of starting to move equipment outside of the country potentially and to other areas. And so that's going to take time and energy and, construction and other things before that can get back up and running. And so there's going to be capital behind that. There's going to have to be, again, time to get it up and running. I think the hash rate is going to continue to potentially suffer as a result. But this is just kind of, large outflows potentially we could see. And again, we talked about this last week, where they go is still an open question. But Naomi, I want to get your take on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I thought that Bitcoin could definitely drop to 20. I think that, it's definitely a possibility when people are thinking, oh, it's just a tiny bit of a dip to 60,000, it'll go back up. We see these things all the time and these are cycles. The only thing that I think is quite different this time is inflation. I would have thought, oh, this could be another couple-year bear run. We could be in for something similar to, the top of 2017 and then wait all the top of 2013 and you just wait years and years and the price just keeps getting lower and lower. But this time, there's so much money printing and so many companies are looking at it. We've got people like Ray Dalio who've talked about it on the show. You've got Paul Tudor Jones. They're all saying, listen, this is a good hedge against inflation. So if the smart money is still looking at this, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a very short bear market.
Is the smart money still looking at it or are they buying it? Because we're seeing these large sell-offs, right? And I think that there's a little bit of a conflict between Bitcoin's sort of reactionary nature to a lot of different things and kind of the slow, long increase that we've seen in inflation over a number of years. And to me, these things are a little bit at odds. And I was wondering if you could maybe unpack why you think that may be the case, or am I thinking about that incorrectly?
Well, I think a lot of traders are looking at market signals like this. They're trading rumors and, they're selling rumors and buying the news and all of these things. So I think that the short-term and long-term plays come into factor in these people's decisions. I think when you're talking about like people like Paul Tudor Jones, Ray Dalio, they're maybe thinking more long term. Definitely, Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy is thinking long term. And I think when Elon Musk bought for Tesla, they were thinking, well, it would be good to have this on our balance sheets long term. I think that everyday traders, though, are still going to be, moving in very volatile directions based on whatever the news of the day is. And the news of today is, all the China FUD. So it's no surprise at all that people are reacting to this and at least expecting that other people are going to be selling off this news as well. So always very volatile, but long term, I still remain pretty bullish.
I have a few questions. Number one, are we allowed to wear hats on this show? Is that just general consensus?
Yes.
There's 2 out of 3 people wearing hats. We're just getting more and more casual.
Only cowboy hats.
As things go on. And I know I've asked this before, but for newcomers to Bitcoin who got kind of caught up in the hype in February and are now experiencing this bear market for the first time, what would you tell them? I know I've been traveling around for the past few weeks, and there are people who I've been talking to who got into Bitcoin in the last few months, and they're panicking.
But yeah,
They should.
It's a good lesson. Welcome to crypto.
Bitcoin is
all about supply and demand. These things move all over the place. I'm sorry, I can't be more helpful.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, money's gone.
That was great advice.
Yeah, I think
just shocked everyone.
That was it. Yeah, shocked everyone into absolute silence. All right, Will, take it away. Look what you did. Let's go to the next story.
Jen, you have to pin someone with the question, otherwise it's just going to be awkward silence every single time.
Okay, next time
so
I'll
over to
just choose someone.
Just a little tip, just a little producer's tip there. Okay, so Nassim Taleb, erstwhile Bitcoin admirer, has now published a paper trashing the Great Orange Coin. So he wrote in a blog post this last week that in spite of the hype, Bitcoin failed to satisfy the notion of a currency without government, as it proved just to kind of be a giant bubble. He says it's not a good long-term or short-term store of value, and does not constitute, not even remotely, a tail protection vehicle for catastrophic episodes. So this comes after Nassim Taleb has written the foreword for Safety Amus's book, The Bitcoin Standard, which of course is one of the big entry points for a lot of people moving to the Bitcoin space nowadays. It also comes after a few praiseworthy blog posts on Bitcoin in the past, most recently I think in 2017. So he's done a total and about face, and he has pissed off a lot of people, to put it bluntly, in the short term here. So interesting to see someone kind of with a bigger macro baggage around him kind of turn on Bitcoin right now, when we see, like you said, Naomi, a second ago, Ray Dalio and other hedge fund titans kind of turning towards Bitcoin. So what do you guys take it as? Naomi, I actually do want to get your thoughts on Nassim about face first.
Yeah. There's so much drama. It's another day in crypto. You have all of these figureheads just fighting each other on social media. So you had, when you look at the Bitcoin Standard, so he wrote the forward to that, right? And so we know that he was very bullish at one stage, and now he's turning around saying, well, actually, it's not even a currency. He has a lot of points that I would agree with, to be honest, when he's talking about this not being used as a currency and all of that. I think that when he's saying this isn't any guarantee against economic episodes, of course it's not. There are no guarantees about these things, but are you going to bet on something that has potential upside or something that has a sure thing of downside the more money the government prints, right? So I think that's why people are betting on Bitcoin. And I do think he undervalues Bitcoin's use as this, long-term hedge, this store of value. People are using it. They're just using it with a long-term mindset. So I've always taken issue with people who say well, it's not even used. Well, actually it is. It's used to store people's savings. And we shouldn't discount that. That's a very important use case. So, I do agree with some of his things. I definitely don't think Bitcoin is great as a currency. Even the Lightning experiments going on in El Salvador, I'm chatting to some people on the ground there at the moment. I love the excitement. I love that people are getting into this. All the solutions are custodial at the moment. So yes, we don't really have something that's outside of government control in terms of payments for Bitcoin right now. I do think that will change. We're not there right now, so I can understand why Nassim Taleb is kind of down on all of this. But yeah, I can see both sides, but ultimately I love Bitcoin. So I disagree with his final takeaway there. But I'll throw it to you, Jen. I saw your hand go up.
Well, just coming off the back of what you said when I was reading the story, I also thought he made a lot of valid points. And I started thinking about CBDCs and the privacy discussion that we've been having on this show over time. And I think as more CBDCs launch, as we've seen in China, and people really start to understand the privacy concerns with things like CBDCs, we're going to see people focus their attention back onto Bitcoin. And so I think that he's right in a sense for right now, but I think we're going to see a shift in how the mainstream view it.
There's such a great point, Jen, about just like as the government, phases out cash, as they get more control, we have more of a need than ever for a decentralized money. But Ben, I saw your hand go up.
I mean, I think this is kind of a conversation. We're talking about this big pivot within a 3-year period, sort of. And I think that's fine. I guess, I don't know. I know that, Bitcoin lends itself to like sweeping proclamations about it being the thing or not the thing. And I think that we see that quite often. And so I think people are going to come and go with it. Like people change their minds. That's totally fine. I still think when you're developing like an alternative monetary system, we're still in the very, very early days of this. I know we like to talk about, how tech moves really fast, and Bitcoin is certainly, on a trajectory that's moving quite quickly, but there's still a lot of things to be worked out. We're still building out all these functionalities, the privacy functionalities as well. Those are definitely still being out. So to me, this is just like, we can say all these things right now, but this is just a natural step in incremental progress for any sort of monetary system that you're trying to develop, particularly a decentralized one where there is no prime stakeholder, right? Who cannot like push things further more quickly. So I kind of take this larger proclamation, look at like the granular stuff and just say like, we're early, that's fine. Maybe he'll come back. Who knows?
Yeah, no, just to jump in there for last thought really quickly. It is interesting to a degree that like Bitcoin's culture just kind of kills all its heroes over time. And I think we see this very poignantly here. Like Nassim was such a, like people were so big on him when he was pro Bitcoin. People were like, oh, we have Nassim, like we're golden. Like he's the golden child of finance. And then he turns and now we hate him. And I'm interested to see what the future of that looks like, because we're not getting less people interested in Bitcoin. We're getting more titans. Like Elon was very quickly killed in Bitcoin culture. And then I'm wondering, like, does Michael Saylor or other big proponents of the space now, like what is their kind of hero arc within the Bitcoin story? So interesting to see that with Nassim.
Have no heroes, kids. That's our takeaway.
Oh man, have we done
a break?
We've done the heroes journey.
We're going to take a break and we're going to go to a hero album for me personally. Reasonable Doubt, a hero album by Jay-Z, his debut. It's ensnared in a legal tussle. And we're going to talk about that after the break. Stick with us. It's The Hash. We'll see you in a second.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination in the form of cultural creativity is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
Welcome back to The Hash, everyone. So we're going to start off this block talking about what's going on in El Salvador at the moment. We announced on the show that if you haven't been keeping up with any of this, Bitcoin is now a legal tender there, and lots of repercussions of that rollout. And one of them was a pushback against some of the underpinning technology of the Strike system, which is really moving a lot of the Bitcoin transactions around in El Salvador. They use Tether as the kind of backbone there. But Jack Mallers, the CEO of Strike, just announced on the What Bitcoin Did podcast that Tether is no longer a part of anything. They are going to be phasing out all of that. Apparently, when Tether was added as part of the plan of how it all works, it's because it had to be, because I didn't have a choice. So that's one of the things I want to talk about. Let's throw to the group to start off with, and then we'll dig into more of the El Salvador drama going on there. Zack, what are your thoughts on all of this?
What are my thoughts on all this? Well, so yeah, Tether has like this sordid history of like dubious backing, and so people saw Tether associated with this project that made Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador, and probably rightly worried a little bit about that. If this was going to be a widely used currency, having sort of a questionable intermediary in the middle there might be quite problematic. So the fact that they're moving away from that, I think, is quite interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my main takeaway is here. I think I think the El Salvador experiment continues to be interesting in that we will see what happens, right? We're sort of past that initial honeymoon of announcement mode, and we're in like the brass tacks. Okay, how's this thing going to work mode? And this, I think, is a key detail that a lot of people were looking to get some clarity on. And the fact that Mahlers went out and made these comments, I think, is a bit revealing about how the project is intending to work at this scale, at a nationwide scale in El Salvador itself. So more clarity, more details. I think the devil is going to be in the details on this one, as it is with many projects in crypto. So the fact that we're seeing a little bit more clarity here, I think, is a top line positive. That's pretty much my initial take right now. I don't know if I have much more than that, but I'll throw it back to you, Naomi, for more.
Yeah, I will just mention, so what they're doing instead of using Tether, Strike is now integrating with the country's top 5 banks and 2 biggest cash point distributors. And so there will be stores and places where people can exchange their mobile balance for physical cash. But it's just interesting because you've gone from a country where everything was basically peer-to-peer cash. The vast majority of transactions were all in just physical cash. And then you have the president of the country say, well, we're going to integrate Bitcoin, but we're also going to mandate that you have to accept it if someone offers it to you, which is very different to legal tender laws in the rest of the world. Usually it's actually quite rare to have that sort of mandate. You have to accept it for spot transactions. But what's interesting is you go from this peer-to-peer system, people say, we're bringing freedom. And suddenly you introduce all these banks, all these intermediaries. If you want to actually get that physical cash, you have to go to a storefront, take out time, all this bureaucratic paperwork. So it seems like we have a long way to go before we actually get to that freedom point. Strike is this custodial service. And so people have gone from just transacting freely peer-to-peer to now using this custodians and third parties, and everyone seems to be cheering it. I definitely love that El Salvador is exploring Bitcoin and ways to integrate it. I think that we need to move away from these controlled avenues, though. Bitcoin for me is all about freedom. So I would love to get back there, get back to choice in money rather than mandates and all of that. But Ben, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah.
Sorry, Will, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, Will, take it.
Okay, yeah, I'll jump in there really quick. I think that Mahlers and his project should be taken with, should not be so aggressively hunted right now. I think that it's a new project, and that there's a lot of spotlight on them right now, of course, and to a degree, he drew that on himself. But overall, he's doing something for Bitcoin, which no one has really done yet. And I think that's notable in and of itself. And the technical solutions aren't there across the board. Bitcoin is an impressive technology because it's non-custodial by nature. And the applications that people are trying to build on top of it, it's very difficult to build non-custodial solutions on top of Bitcoin. It's difficult to build them on top of Ethereum or even something with more scripting. So it's not surprising to me that they're still having issues with that. I think the interesting part, in my mind's eye, the fact that Bitcoin is gaining adoption as a savings technology in that area is what is the most important about the story itself, as opposed to having banks integrate and whatnot. At some point, you're going to have some sort of custodial solutions for the nominal person.
Yeah, and I will just add to what you were saying, Will, about them being hunted. So there's actually a lawsuit from El Salvador's opposition party against this Bitcoin legislation. They say that it's unconstitutional. I mean, I have my issues with the legislation, but it seems that their main point is that, Bitcoin law is a tool to loot people's pockets. It's tax exempt. It's what's wrong with the people of El Salvador making money from this? I don't quite see where they're coming from, but there is this pushback against this law. But Ben, you were going to jump in there.
No, I think I just want to circle back to your point about him kind of inviting the spotlight on this. I think with the status and sort of the ambition of what he's trying to do, I think it's totally natural that people are going to look critically at the project, because if you're particularly going to a country like El Salvador and saying I'm going to be the partner working with this and kind of bringing this to a country's population of people, you deserve that scrutiny, because all of these questions that we're talking about with USDT, those are the ones that really need to be answered. And I think that, later on in this piece that we're talking about, there were points brought up and there were critiques brought up about, ATMs that could potentially withdraw Bitcoin once converted to, or excuse me, dollars once converted to Bitcoin and stuff, and like kind of the fees that were associated with very, very few ATMs there that were able to do it. And so I think, again, like Zack said, the devil's in the details. And that to me is a really interesting thing. I think, again, proclamations are really interesting and you can like go for it and say like, we are going to do this, but how that actually gets executed when you get into the really messy world of like, politics and legislation and technology and then users, like those are things I need to unpack because, to me, what's interesting here is the law. What could be really interesting or really devastating is how this actually impacts people's lives. So that's sort of the route I think about these things because there's always cascading effects that impact real people. And those are the people I think that we really need to be focusing on. Again, not just the figureheads. But I want to take this ball and run with it to another story. And, speaking of Bitcoin's price going down and sort of the FUD surrounding it, environmental concerns have obviously been a dampening effect on Bitcoin's price, including Elon Musk's tweets for a while now. And with that, there's been sort of a pivot to focus on more ESG-friendly mining and the like. And so along with that news, Stronghold Mining, a digital asset mining firm, has raised $105 million to turn waste coal into Bitcoin. Now, this is in Pennsylvania, and waste coal is a sort of byproduct of coal mining. Strongbox claims that it is, the equivalent of, the environmental impact of hydropower. And in fact, the Public Utility Commission of Pennsylvania kind of categorizes it as such. But Zack, this raised a lot of questions for me because now we're diving again into like local state politics and regulations. So I believe you edited this piece. Talk to me a bit about what you were finding here.
I can confirm that I edited this piece last night. There's a lot going on in this piece. I'm calling it now. This is going to be a great New York Times Magazine piece in 3 months. I'm thinking about pitching this story to NPR. There's a lot of pieces going on here, a lot of interesting, provocative thought intersections, right? You have the history of coal waste in Pennsylvania, famously encapsulated by the town of Centralia, PA. If you guys are familiar with it, it's the place where the coal fire has been burning continuously for 50 years underground. These little hellish landscapes of like an abandoned town, right? So there is this crazy environmental legacy of coal in Pennsylvania that's pretty nuts. So this waste product, I guess, can be processed into into fresh energy. And again, Ben, as you mentioned, I did check this. The state authorities in Pennsylvania categorized coal waste in the same environmental impact class as large-scale hydropower operations. So these claims to being ESG friendly on the part of Strongholds definitely kind of, to my knowledge, check out here in this instance. I was initially quite dubious as well because you see coal waste, you see these crazy pictures of coal fires burning for literal decades, and you're like, how can this be an environmentally responsible way to process Bitcoin mining power? So anyway, really interesting stuff. Definitely sort of, at the very least, kind of complicates the narrative around Bitcoin's environmental impact being bad. And, we've seen a lot of talk about that. This is one of several experiments to do it in a way that may indeed be ESG friendly. And I think this story is actually quite interesting. The terms of the deal include them trying to get a public listing on the books, which another vertically integrated miner, Greenidge Generation, I think it's called, did recently. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying, Will, what's your take?
So no, I'm going to take this like a slightly different direction. So it's interesting the point that they classify reusing this cold waste for the same as hydro, because if you look at hydro, you look at solar, you look at any sort of renewable energy, and they're also pretty destructive to a degree. And so it's like, these stories always make me feel a little sad because it's like, how do we get renewable energy that's extremely clean and like beneficial for the environment? If you always go back a few steps, you always find some sort of dirty energy powering everything. So for example, solar fabrication is mostly done in China, and it's done using coal from Xinjiang, which of course is a province just full of human rights abuse, and then just these really nasty coal mines, and that's where they're making all these solar power plants that are used all over the world. And so I think like the broader story there is like renewable energy has a long way to go to be really clean, and the Bitcoin mining story is kind of it's like able to expose that industry or show that we still have a lot of work there. And it's interesting that Bitcoin is the method for showing how that industry needs to keep growing.
Well, I was going to say,
go ahead,
go
Jen.
for it, Naomi. Okay, I'll go really quickly.
You go.
There's a standoff between you two.
Oh man.
No. Well, I was just going to say much the same as you. I mean, this is a narrative that's only been amplified recently, and I feel like we've been looking at a lot of different ways in the industry to address the environmental concerns around Bitcoin, and that's obviously going to unveil, good things and bad things. And I don't think we've seen an industry move so quickly when it comes to addressing environmental concerns. So I think it's a good thing. I think we're gonna see a lot of good come out of this in the long run. But I'm still waiting to see someone actually tell us how bad is Bitcoin really for the environment. I don't think anyone has really kind of secured that information. So I'm waiting for that. But Naomi, I will kick it off to you before we go into the last story.
Yeah, well, just on your point, Jen, I mean, using energy is not the same as bad for the environment. So a lot of people use those interchangeably. Just because something uses a lot of electricity doesn't mean that it's bad for the environment. There are all kinds of ways you can use electricity. But my question was just about Elon Musk. He cited environmental concerns as the reason for not accepting Bitcoin. I think that's, is actually another reason. But, conspiracy theories aside, if we actually take it at face value, he was mainly citing coal mines. And he was mainly citing coal-powered energy production and looking at China. Now, China's just shut down 90% of Bitcoin mining, right? And so does this change the energy debate? Where is Elon now? If his main concern was that most mining happened in China, a lot of Chinese energy production is coal-powered. That's disappeared now. I mean, what happens next, right? So I would love to hear more about that. Let's get him on the show next week, is what I'm saying. If we can just, bring him on here. But Jen, I'll throw this to you for the next topic.
Okay, so who on this panel, raise your hand if you know about the beef between Jay-Z and Damon Dash? No one. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, I'm going to intro the story and I'm going to kick it right off to you, Zach. So the beef between Roc-A-Fella Records co-founders Jay-Z and Damon Dash continues into the crypto world. The record label is suing Dame for allegedly trying to sell Jay-Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt, as an NFT. So now, according to TMZ, Dame says that the lawsuit has a few inaccuracies. He was not actually trying to sell Jay-Z's first album as an NFT. He was trying to sell his entire stake in the record label. So, Zach, I'm going to toss this right down to you for your opinion. I'm sure you.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that Dame Dash and Jay-Z have beef that is pre-existing to this? Is that what your question was? Is there some backstory?
So they've been beefing for a really, really long time.
I didn't even know that.
You're not,
come on, man. No, I can't. You got the wrong guy, man. You're gonna have to unpack this one. Sorry, I totally botched that. I thought you were talking about this particular thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I read that story, but no, I don't know. So can you do the TLDR of the beef?
Yeah, sure. We don't have, a lot of time for me to go into all the drama between the two of them. But they co-founded Roc-A-Fella Records in 1995. And then since 1995, the two have had several kind of really public fights in terms of ownership over different albums, business ventures, and even some relationship drama. But I won't get into it. We don't have time. I know it's not an entertainment show. We got to talk about the crypto angle.
Show.
All right.
All right. So zoom out.
Stake in a record label.
All right.
Stake in a record label
Let's go to the
as
boring
an NFT.
Stuff. Yeah. Intellectual property rights and NFTs are really the lurking issue that hasn't been fully unpacked by the lawyers of crypto Twitter yet. So that's my tepid take on this one. I just want to know the beef. I didn't know it was personal, but I guess that's on me. I should have looked that one up.
Always personal in crypto. Come on.
This is like, I don't know. So interesting. This is bad for all industries. This is terrible.
Especially the markets are selling off.
So I mean,
what's the story here? What's the story with the IP law?
I think what's weird. I think what's weird is like you're seeing, we saw this happen with artists during the NFT boom where like one part of a collective that had created something was trying to like sell that as an NFT. It's rearing its head in music in a very high profile way in this regard. Like, I don't know how Dame Dash could try and do this and not expect like a target to be on his back immediately, just given the album itself and given, Roc-A-Fella Records more generally. The sort of correction to the lawsuit that Dash is claiming, I think is even a little bit more wild. Like selling a stake in a company as an NFT, particularly again, one as high profile as Roc-A-Fella Records. It's like, I don't know what that means. And I think it's really confusing. Like, sure, I guess you have proof of that is like written to the blockchain. But again, what does that stake entail? And to me, that doesn't even like, that further complicates the issue, right? Like a record is one thing, but like stakes in businesses is something completely different. So I'm curious to see where this is going. Again, we're going to see this lawsuit work out one way or another. So we're going to have some precedent. But that to me is his correction to seemingly make it better somehow made it worse, I guess, in my mind.
He might be like the next figurehead for like tokenized equities or like security tokens. Maybe that's what this is really about, right? Like this ownership stake in Roc-A-Fella should just be a security token that he could trade more freely than he would be able to previously. And he just wasn't aware of the concept of security token quite yet. So I don't know.
So it's on Binance when?
So when Binance?
When Binance?
When Binance, sir.
I mean, that's possible, but there are other business partners at play here. So, I mean, I guess technically he could sell his equity in Roc-A-Fella Records as an NFT, but there's a lot more complication to this from a business perspective. Like, what does that person actually get? I'm very curious to know.
I think, that string of words sort of illustrates it. Like he could sell his equity in his business as an NFT, but there's a lot of complications. Like, because I don't know what any of that means, like said together. I think we're going to get to unpacking that in the recent day. But it feels like, a little bit where NFTs are at this point is where they're just becoming this mumbo jumbo of like jargon and gibberish wrapped in like something else. And I don't know what to make of it as of yet. But again, lawsuits might help us clear some of that up.
Just one more point on this before we wrap, Zach. I do want to give some clarity. So Jay-Z tried to buy his stake from him in March, and he said that the offer was unreasonable, and now he's trying to sell it as an NFT. So maybe he just sees this as a money grab, as so many people do, and he thinks he can get more money as an NFT, and they'll just sort out the legalities later.
No to tell me it's going down too.
All right. Good stuff. Oh, if only we were back in the days of the Jay-Z Nas beef. So distant, those early 90s rap beefs of yore. Anyway, we'll stick to something else tomorrow, I guess. This is the Tuesday edition of The Hash. The Wednesday edition, also going to be banging. So tune in tomorrow. Stick around, CoinDesk TV, 3 p.m. Eastern. Everyone's nodding. Like, yeah, Wednesday. It's going to be so tight.
We're bringing it.
We're bringing it. Wednesday, get ready. We're gearing up. We had to get this one.
The hardest day of the week.
Got to get back in the zone. Anyway, 3 p.m. Eastern, all about Bitcoin, CoinDesk TV, good stuff. CoinDesk.com, also good stuff. Check it out. I'm Zach. We got Naomi, Ben, Jen, Will. We'll see you tomorrow. It's The Hash. Thanks so much.
Bye.